Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Asad Lalji. I'm the curator here at the Royal Opera House. On behalf of the royal family of Gondal, Ashish Doshi, Honorary Director, and myself, welcome to India's only surviving opera house and our city's very own cultural crown jewel. At Avid, literature is one of our most important and robust verticals, and we constantly strive to bring newer perspectives and voices to our audiences. We believe in the power of the written word and regularly collaborate with literature festivals, authors, intellectuals, publishing houses, and leading personalities to provide a platform for our attendees to be exposed to diverse viewpoints and opinions from around the world. Tonight's session brings to our stage two women, both of whom have written extensively on various subjects and have made a mark on the global scale. Author Ma Anand Sheela has been in the global cultural limelight for more than 40 years, with the world scooping and probing each aspect of her life. After all, how many of us get to be the subject of a global Netflix series? Author Ma Anand Sheela has lived a life full of euphoric highs and lows, and it won't be far-fetched to say that she has seen the best and the worst the world has to offer. Born in Baroda and now a naturalized citizen of Switzerland, Sheela has been incarcerated for 39 months, founded an old age home in 1990, expanded 3 major projects over the last 30 years in Switzerland and Mauritius. These experiences have provided her with a unique vantage point to gaze at many cultures and societies as they evolve. The life lessons thus acquired are the spine of her latest book, By My Own Rules. She will be in conversation with author and journalist Namita Devidayal as they unpack her complex and fascinating life. On behalf of the Royal Opera House, Mumbai, Penguin Random House, and Avid Learning, I'd like to thank you for being with us this evening as we seek to better understand Ma Anand Sheela's journey, focusing on her book, By My Own Rules. The discussion will help us understand her beliefs, her inspirations, the ups and downs of her life through an enriching and invigorating conversation. So without further ado, allow me to welcome author Ma Anand Sheela and author and journalist Namita Devidayal. The stage is all yours, guys. Take it away. Thank you very much.
What's my name? What's my name? My name is Sheela. Sheela.
Hi. I'm going to start by reading a quote by Osho. The greatest fear in the world is of the opinions of others. And the moment you are unafraid of the crowd, you are no longer a sheep. You become a lion. A great roar arises in your heart, the roar of freedom. Now, the reason I picked this is because I think that if there is one person that has not cared about the opinion of anyone, it is Sheela. In fact, I think most of us, I dare say, are constantly afraid of the opinions of others. And I suspect, at least I can speak for myself and some of us here, that the reason we're here is because our lives are fairly dull and, we're constantly sort of surrounded by this idea of what will people say. And I suspect that we're here to sort of vicariously extract some excitement from somebody who has always said, well, tough titties. No, but on a more serious note, when Asad asked if I would be in conversation with Sheela, I literally jumped because, I think it's really somebody who is possibly the most gutsy person I would have ever met in my life and possibly will. There's no shortage of opinions on you, Sheela, as we know, and I think that you really don't care and you continue to follow your version of existence. And the idea that, there have been things that you've done in your life, and I don't know whether or not you poisoned people allegedly or ran some kind of immigration fraud or had this epic fight with Bhagwan. But whatever happened, there were consequences and you faced those. And now we're here to discuss, well, your book, your lessons, and many of your very counterintuitive views on life, which will hopefully impact all of us in some ways, from sex to spirituality. So my first question to you, Sheela, is that after living such a high octane life and with so much epic scale drama, why did you choose the most boring country in the world to live in?
You're right. That was the country that came to my rescue.
Okay.
When the world had rejected me, I had only one possibility, and that possibility to be in Switzerland, because I was a Swiss citizen then.
Oh.
And Switzerland has done beautifully with me with their cold distance. I have been living in Switzerland for the last 32 years. And Swiss people, Swiss government, and surroundings all have left me alone. And I continue to do my thing, my work, and I'm extremely, extremely grateful to Switzerland.
Thank you. I'm just curious as to why it took you so many decades to visit India after you were sort of well settled in Switzerland and had established your, sort of new trajectory of running these homes. Did you not have a craving for the homeland, or at least for some undio and pork in the winter? And why did it take you, I think, 35 years, was it?
Almost.
Yes, to come back and, be here.
Well, one of the first things that I was invited by a young man to come to India, and it happened with the film called Wild Wild Country. Apparently, Wild Wild Country had caught fire all over the world.
Absolutely.
And when they invited me, I had no choice but to say, yes, I'm coming. It was such a yes that my sister, Meera, she is the policewoman in my life and protector. Normally, she doesn't like when I talk to anybody or anybody comes to visit me who call themselves journalists. She doesn't like that. But when I said, Mary, look, here is this email, and I'm being invited. If you say no, I won't do it. If you say yes, I will do it. And she said, no, now is the time for you to go to India. And she put some conditions for my return, but I promised her that I would take care of myself. And that was her love.
I'm just curious, what were some of those conditions?
One of the conditions was that I take 2 of my team members who have been extremely loving towards me and supported me through my hard times. One of them is traveling right now with me too. Her name is Miriam Moravitz, and another one is Heike Kampala. And both are very, very loyal to me.
So, you know, the way you speak about your sisters, as well as the extraordinary reverence towards your late parents, which I read of in your book, and also the fact that you've named your various homes Bapu Sadan and Matru Sadan, it's very evident that you're not faking the kind of love and piety that you feel towards the family. So I have two questions. One is that you clearly grew up in a very close-knit and fairly simple traditional Indian family by all accounts. How did you get this wild, wild side?
Well, we were traditional, but not really.
Okay.
We were taught to run after freedom. Both my parents were freedom fighters, and my father was very clear that he's going to educate all his children, including 4 daughters, the best education they can have. And he was very forward in his thinking. He taught us freedom from our childhood.
And he's the one who initially introduced you to Bhagwan as well as to Krishnamurti.
Absolutely. If anybody needs to be blamed for my wildness, it has to be my father.
So I guess one of the most used and abused words of our century, of our times, is maybe second to sex, is spirituality. Would you be able to define it for us, or at least talk about what you think is spirituality? It's really a tough one.
You asked the question about spirituality to a person who is non-spiritual. That's me. Spirituality is not my cup of tea. And the reason for it is a non-tangible product. It is a product you cannot touch or feel. And such products have been existing in human history from day one. We are so fearful in ourselves of being ourselves that we want to be spiritual. This is not spirituality. If you truly want to be spiritual, drop all your expectations of any kind. And if you drop your expectations and live life, life will truly become spiritual. But what does it matter? Why do you want to be spiritual and put a full point there? Life is an open field. We have been born to dance through this life. Why do you want to get into this boring business of spirituality? I ask you.
Well, because you ran one of the first spiritual corporations in the world, and that too in a very extraordinary way. In fact, I would say that you were the first woman CEO from India long before Indira Nui. So actually, I'm also very curious. Let's remove spirituality from the equation of the incredible organization that Bhagwan assigned to you and trusted you to run. And what would you say were some of the management skills or mantras that you used to run that?
My biggest management mantra is, you be the first to take care of the problem before you ask others to do it. So if the glass breaks here, I should be the first one to bend down and start picking up shattered glass, instead of standing there in a blue suit and looking down upon a person who was part of the accident.
Nice.
What I would not ask my subordinates is what I would not ask of myself. The basic situation when a tough time comes, we pass the buck to others in normal organizations. We don't take the responsibility for it. And my principle was, take responsibility. If you cannot take the responsibility, then don't complain. It is so very important that don't complain without doing something about it. These are some of the few things that I have understood from Bhagwan, from my father, mother, and I have applied that in my life. And it truly changes the quality. Don't look down upon people just because they are subordinates or supporters. Look at them at the same eye level. And this changes the quality of management. And we were good managers. We had a lot of fun working around Bhagwan and with his vision. People say many things. It doesn't matter. But I sit in front of you today here tells a lot more than what people say. And this is how I have lived.
How do you remain so immune to judgment and so sort of, indifferent to, well, the media frenzy, the constant finger pointing? What is the secret?
Secret is I know myself. And I reflect on myself. To be able to know yourself clears out much garbage from the mind. I'm not expecting somebody to like me or love me. If they like me, I'm grateful, I'll have fun with them. If they don't like me, I will walk away. And if they annoy me, then I'll give them a finger.
Tough titties.
Exactly, tough titties.
So, just to get back to the subject of fear that we started with, for a seemingly fearless person like you, has there ever been a moment that you were genuinely scared? And if so, what did you rely on as a resource to sort of overcome that?
Fear is something my father had trained us from we were children. We had a farm in Madhya Pradesh. We were young girls of 10, 12. And he would send us in those days with 24-hour train ride alone to go. My mother would get a bit upset with my father on that issue. But father would always say, you have no reason to fear, just use your common sense. Don't go in areas which are isolated. When you sit in a train, you sit among people. Small, small tips like that. And you're still afraid, you pretend you're not afraid. You show that you have everything under control. And somehow, living life with Father, we became bold.
So, was there any moment in your life where you really did feel utterly vulnerable and scared?
Fear not, but I did feel sad when I left Bhagwan. There was a deep sadness that came that I'm going to leave my heart behind. But that too was just in the moment, and it too passed. And now I can live alone, no sweat, no problem. In fact, prefer to live alone. Sometimes if somebody says, can I sleep in your room? I say, let me listen to my news without comments, you know. But life becomes easier as you become older and a bit relaxed into life.
So, on a lighter note, I love how you posed nude in Germany's leading lifestyle magazine Stern when you were very young. You looked gorgeous. I don't know if you're aware, but this week there's been a lot of controversy in India over one of our top actors posing nude, Ranveer Singh. And I'm really curious to hear your views on why India has such a problem with nudity and why there's so much hypocrisy around it.
That is because of oppressed sexuality. That is because the world, the culture, the religion talks about, doesn't want to show the nudity. But if you look at it, Ajanta Ellora has all the sculptures, they are nude, and beautiful sculpture. Women with voluptuous breast. So beautiful sculpture there. What is people's problem? Some they take time and stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself. Yeah, if you have a rice belly, don't look at it. It is disgusting. Then go to a sports studio and start taking down your fat from the belly. Do some exercise. But otherwise, what I have noticed, wherever I have gone, so many beautiful women, most everybody is so beautiful here that I'm overwhelmed. And the young men that I met during my travel, beautiful, simply gorgeous. And if they want to have fun and want to pose nude, it's not pornography, because it is not coming out of your sexual perversion. It is his profession. He's an actor. Allow him the freedom to be an actor, a creative force. And if you don't want to look at him, close your eyes. You have an option. We engage ourselves in trivia matters. If you want to do something about nakedness, then you have to look at your own brains and you see beautiful women or men that you desire in your fantasy. Do something about that and you won't be disturbed by it. Look at where your thoughts are, and you will find out this is not what you are upset about. Maybe you're upset about your rice belly, that you cannot pose naked. You will scare your partner.
Do you feel that India, in some ways, was more liberal at the time that, the heyday of the ashram, both in Pune and in Oregon, in Rajneeshpuram? There seemed to be a kind of a freedom of expression, a freedom of being that has gone, actually. Do you think that that's the case? Do you think that there's a sort of going backwards?
Near Bhagwan, to exercise freedom was easy. Why easy? Because we were all engaged in listening to Bhagwan and his wisdom daily, once, twice, daily. And what Bhagwan's try to provoke in us is to know yourself, know your sexuality, and don't be perverse. When you have a clear guidance, you can move forward. These days, there is no Bhagwan and there is no clear guidance. So how would you do it? But Bhagwan has left beautiful words behind for us to read and ponder upon, for us to read and learn from it. So I request whoever wants to understand their own sex and sexuality, read Bhagwan's books. He was a very practical and right to the point man.
You say somewhere in the book that Bhagwan once told you that the difference between an animal and a person is that animals don't repeat their mistakes. I was kind of touched by that. And you use that mantra to your team, which is that every mistake can be a stepping stone for a new understanding. Just don't repeat the same mistakes. Can you talk about that a little bit more? And first, let me ask you, what has been a mistake that you would never repeat?
I would not repeat many mistakes that I have done in my life and lived through it and learned through it. One of them is to put somebody down in anger. Don't give your anger the power to put another human being down. And the mistakes one human to another human are done, they are not even worth anger. Bhagwan used to tell this story of Gurdjieff, that Gurdjieff goes to his father on a deathbed to say goodbye. Father says to Gurdjieff, "Son, I have no inheritance for you except one advice. And my advice to you is, whenever you are angry, wait 24 hours before you react on it or respond to it." Such a transforming advice from Gurdjieff's father. I understood the story instantly. And I don't get upset. People ask me sometimes that, how can you so calmly answer journalists? They are my testers. They taste me, whether I have learned my lesson good or not. Such mistakes are ignorable. One can say, it is only, they bring me to do it or something like that. But no, we do it to ourselves. There is another beautiful story I have remembered till now from Bhagwan. We create our own hell and heaven. A Zen master is visited by a samurai. And suddenly, Zen master makes a verbal attack on this samurai. And samurai pulls out his sword because he could not tolerate that kind of abuse. He stops for a moment and he puts the sword back. And the master says, "Here opens the gates of heaven." It is small anecdotes like this that stop me from repeating mistakes.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about how you deal with the most difficult, disabled, challenged patients that you now look after? You talk about the Demens Mandir. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, Demens Mandir is one of the favorite rooms in our house. It is right in the living room. As you enter into our house, 2 meters on your left side is the Demens Mandir with 6 beds in it. One of the reasons people feel fear of death because they feel isolated. In normal homes in Europe, it is now so that old people are placed in a single room, thinking that it is their right to be having single room. But what they do through that person having Alzheimer or Parkinson or any other type of dementia, they don't want to be alone. They need warmth, they need contact, they need communication. I have put in Demens Mandir 3 desks with 4 computers or 3 computers in it. Miriam, who is with me, she works on one of her computer. So somebody is always working in the room, so they're not alone. She also hears them cough, or she hears them moan, or their blanket has gone out, or she is going out to find a file, and on the way she takes their hand and she touches them and makes them feel that somebody's here. It is small things. They hear the telephone ringing, dog barking, doors opening, music running. They are occupied. And the last moment of life has to be pleasant, warm, relaxed, away from fear. Because at a last moment, we go through things our whole lifetime. And often people have problem dying because they wanted to do something and they didn't do it. Or they are too attached to the family or afraid to let go of the family because the unknown, they don't know what comes. I have had a number of families where they had family problems, where father and sons were not talking together, or mother was interfering with the children, and they could not die. When I see the person is very close to death, it can happen any moment, then I take such situation and speak to the people involved and say, hey, guys, work out your differences. Yeah, but she doesn't understand. She doesn't recognize, or he doesn't do it. I said, doesn't matter. Go sit near them, take their hand in your hand, and tell mom or dad, it's all okay. Don't be concerned. It's all going to be fine. And you will not believe, few days later, the person is already ready to let go. I have seen many cases like that. And I say to all of you, we are all going to die one day. And while we are alive, don't feel guilty. Go do your thing. Know yourself. And be yourself. And later on, at time of death, you will have an easier death. Because you can decide there also. You can choose when and how you want to go. I don't know if that was the question, but...
Sure, but thank you. Sheela, I know there's a director in the audience and there's a possibility of there being a biopic being on you, a fictionalized, well, not fictionalized, but where somebody would play you. Who would you pick as a young actor to play Sheela?
From this director, when he bought the film rights, I wanted to know, I sold him the film rights, yes. But I wanted to know how his work is afterwards. No, before I didn't think of it. And I saw his film called Kapoors and Kapoors or something.
Kapoor and Sons.
Kapoor and Son. And there was a young girl who played part in it. Her name is Alia Bhatt. I said, Miri, look at this girl. Does she not look like me when I was young? And she said, yes. And then I called the director and said, is it possible to have her? And he said, yeah. I'm not announcing your name just to give you the ultimatum that the film has to be done now, you know? I'm getting too old. It is Shakun Batra, in case you didn't know.
Very nice. We hope it happens. It'll be very entertaining, if nothing else. So I guess maybe we can, before we open up to the audience for questions, we talked about that lovely story by Lao Tzu in the green room. Maybe you can share that story with the audience. And in many ways, it sort of, well, answers every question that we need to get answered, right?
Yes. Do you want me to read it, or do you want me to...
Whatever you prefer, Sheela. So I think that why don't you just tell the story? It's a short little story. It's a little parable. And to me, it's sort of like pretty much closes, opens and closes the chapter on your life.
It is a beautiful story. Bhagwan has often said to us this story. Lao Tzu was a person who was being a judge in a court. There was a thief was brought into the court with the person who accused the thief of stealing. They investigated all that, and it was true that the man had stolen from the rich man's house. Lao Tzu asked the poor man, "Why did you steal?" Poor man says, "We were hungry, we didn't have enough to eat, and children were at home hungry. I had no other choice but to steal." Okay? Then he gives him punishment for stealing. Then Lao Tzu turns to the rich man, and he punishes the rich man also. So rich man says, "Why? I haven't stolen. Why are you punishing me?" Lao Tzu says, "You have been hoarding and doing things that these poor people, do not have enough to eat. So you are equally responsible for his stealing. You created the situation for stealing." And that is the story that.
Thank you, Sheela. Basically, no judging, in short.
Right.
Because everyone is culpable on some level.
Exactly.
I guess we're open to questions from the audience, and there's a mic that will be going around, and so we welcome.
Hi, Sheela.
Hi.
Why you turned to Acharya Rajneesh? Why not to Krishnamurti? You were exposed to both, actually.
For me, Bhagwan was better looking than Krishnamurti.
Thank you for that, Namita. Sheelaji, life has not been a straight line for you. My question is, what were the inner strengths that kept you on that journey strong? I know you mentioned fearlessness. Anything else? And what are the lessons you can share with us that you learned from life which you think can help us? Thank you.
I was in love with Bhagwan, and that love had given me the strength I needed. And I had. It was a strength of love. Nothing else, just the strength of love. I always felt if Bhagwan supports me, I can move mountains for him. And we literally moved mountains in Rajneeshpuram to create a city of Rajneeshpuram. There are many lessons I have learned through life, and one of them is being there. What does being there mean? I am there for you and you are there for me, without expectations.
Thank you, Sheela, for all these life lessons and parables you've been telling us. Thank you, Namita, for asking them. But the whole story of Rajneeshpuram and Antelope and your life has had a lot else that you haven't touched on. And I'm glad you mentioned Rajneeshpuram just now about moving mountains. You did face an enormous amount of opposition from the citizens of Antelope when you moved there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes.
And those kinds of lessons too.
Yes. The citizens of Oregon, politicians of Oregon, did not want foreigners in the land. They were extremely discriminative. They created laws retroactive to stop us from functioning. It was not an easy job. And Bhagwan was very right on the timeline. He wanted the commune to move forward to do the work that we were doing. Definitely, it was not an easy job. Yet, in spite of this massive discrimination, what we had faced in a Bible-thumping region of US, as non-Christians, we were very happy. We ignored it, lot of it. And we did our work with the positivity, energy, love, whatever you want to call it. We did it to a point. And it was a remarkable one-time experience and experiment that I have lived through it. Does it answer your question?
Hi, I have a question. Would you go back to the United States, even for a visit?
No need.
Is it fear?
Is it fair?
Is it fear? Is it fear? Do you fear going back to the United
You
States?
think I'm a fearful woman? No, I'm not afraid.
No, so why would you not go? Just want to
Why
understand.
would I go? I live in a better country.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think you mentioned something about how we make our own heaven and hell. So I guess my question is, what are your views about what happens after we die? Do you believe in some sort of afterlife, or what are your views on that?
I am so busy with this life that I have no idea about afterlife or before life.
Yeah, hi Sheila.
Hi.
We all know about when you left the US and the hardship that you had gone through. Can you talk about the social work that you've been doing at Switzerland?
The social work that I'm doing, I have 2 handicap homes in Switzerland and 1 in Mauritius. I have 20-bed home in Mauritius and 30-bed house in Switzerland. We work with mentally, psychologically, and physically deprived or handicapped people. I work with them as if I'm part of their family. I live in the house same as my residents. I share my room also, just the way they share their rooms. They can come anytime to me because our structure is very open. We have no closed offices. It's transparent. They can come and sit with us any time of the day. There are plenty of chairs around, and be with us. And that being with us somehow is the best medicine that works on them. They start developing trust, and through trust, they lose their fears of life and fears of rejection. It was, and it is, in honor of my mother, Matru Sadan, and honor of my father, Bapu Sadan, I have created 2 homes.
Also
Hi.
in Mauritius and in Vietnam as well, right?
Right.
Why those 2 countries in particular, by the way?
I was traveling there, and each time I saw something that was not right. And immediately I would question myself, would I put Baba Puji in such situation? And then I have to do something.
Hi, how does it feel like to be in love with people who see someone as Bhagwan or God? And did you ever feel that love was reciprocated in equal measure?
Love doesn't have to reciprocate. That is expectations. And if you have expectations, you will be disappointed. And disappointment will only bring you to depression. I did not fall in love with Bhagwan because he would love me back. I simply was in love with him. But reality is that his trust in me was immense, and you cannot love without trust or trust without love. So to answer to reciprocation, yes, he did reciprocate.
Hi, Namita, thank you so much for asking some great questions. Sheila, I think I watched Wild Wild Country all over again before coming here. And when you were asked on TV, it said, I was just done with buying Rolls Royces. But for me, I was like, it must be more than that to make you leave as a human being. So I kind of wanted to know, when you left, what was that turning point that was like, okay, I just need to get out of here? And then the second part was, what do you think also made all your close-knit people also want to come with you?
When I chose to leave, my reasons for leaving Bhagwan were very clear. Bhagwan had told me when I became his secretary that I should protect him, his commune, and his teachings, even against him. If he goes against protection of these 3 things, I should protect him in spite of it. He was among wrong company, and they were experimenting with drugs, which would be detrimental because hostile US government was looking for an excuse to shut us down. It would also put him in physical jeopardy with these experiments, and his teachings will have a scandal in it. So I confronted him. My relationship with him was in honesty, I could say whatever I want to say to him. And I explained to him the issue on hand. His answer was, ignore it. I could not ignore it because then I am not serving him what he had assigned to me. And I chose to leave. When I chose to leave, my whole team said they don't want to stay behind. They cannot deal with him, with this attitude. And that's when they chose to come with me. I had never asked them to come with me. They came on their own, and a couple of people went to their own lives from the team. They all wanted to remain together because we did work very well together. And that was my management.
Thank you, Sheela. Thank you so much, and thank you for being such a great audience. We actually don't have time for any more questions, I've just been told, so thank you.
Thank you, Sheela ji, for sharing your journey, and congratulations on this book. I know we're so lucky to have you here. This wasn't planned on your itinerary for your visit this time. Thanks to Mudit, we made that happen sitting in another event. Thank you, Namita, for doing such an excellent job moderating this session. I wish we had more time. Her books are out for sale. She will be signing. So if you guys want to grab your copies, if you haven't, and buy them, and she will be signing them. Thank you so much for coming here. And hopefully you won't be a stranger to Opera House and Avid programs, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.